Welcome to Unfiltered and Unstoppable with Rob Romesburg. Real strategies for real advisors, a podcast that dives into what it takes to scale a thriving financial practice. Each week, we'll discuss actionable strategies, tools, and insights to keep you ahead in today's financial landscape. From innovative products and powerful marketing tactics, you'll get unfiltered truth and unstoppable strategies. Let's get started by building your unstoppable financial practice today.
Welcome back to Unfiltered and Unstoppable. This is the podcast built specifically for financial advisors who are serious about growing their practices, serving more families, and building a practice that creates freedom instead of stress. I am your host, Rob Romesburg, and really appreciate you spending a part of your day with us here today. Every advisor's had this conversation or some version of it. Couple sits down in your office. They worked for 30, 40 years. They've accumulated what most people would consider to be a substantial nest egg. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, one of them asks a question that actually has nothing to do with investments. And that question is, are we going to be okay? And that's definitely a fascinating moment, especially from those folks that you may have known for years, and they are disciplined and organized and focused and responsible, and then they are even questioning themselves. Even after decades of savings and spreadsheets, market updates, account statements, retirement all of a sudden just suddenly just stops being about accumulation, right? And it starts being about confidence. And the truth is, retirement income planning, it isn't about generating income, really. It's about creating certainty in a very uncertain world, about helping clients understand how to truly put all of the pieces together in retirement. And, those pieces are Social Security, taxes, healthcare, market volatility, legacy planning, and maybe even the most important piece to all of that is, how do we turn a lifetime of savings into a paycheck that they can depend on? And the advisors who are thriving in this environment aren't necessarily the ones with the most letters after their name or the flashiest investment strategies. Quite frankly, they are the advisors that have built the systems. Uh, they've created the framework that simplifies complexity, and ultimately, they've learned how to really communicate the difficult concepts in ways that even the most neutral of clients, so they can understand it. And those advisors have actually developed a process that gives retirees confidence, and that confidence is provided to them long before they've ever signed the paperwork. And today we're going to dive exactly into all of this. We're going to talk about the systems that create consistency, the stories that build trust, the frameworks that help advisors that are primarily working with pre-retirees and retirees, help them to stand out in a increasingly crowded marketplace. Because the thing is, great retirement planning isn't about having all the answers. It's about having it's about helping the clients feel confident enough to move forward. So let's get into it. The biggest misconception in retirement planning, and it's actually quite fascinating. It is not because the clients aren't hiring you because they want better returns. That's a huge misconception. In reality, most advisors get hired simply because the clients want fewer mistakes. So think about that. The retiree is not waking up today and they're not wondering, how can I maximize my returns? For the most part, I'm sure there are some out there for sure. But For the most part, they are waking up and they are wondering, "How do I avoid running out during in retirement?" That's been the number one concern among retirees for decades. I don't see that changing anytime soon. And that's a completely different conversation, by the way. Accumulation planning, retirement income planning, they are not the same thing. Because during the accumulation years, the clients are asking, "How much can I grow?" During retirement, clients are asking, "How much can I spend?" Totally different emotional perspective. It's a different experience altogether, actually. And the problem that I see and hear a lot from advisors out there is that they're still using the accumulation language, uh, talking about averages and long-term growth and asset allocation. Once again, all of those things are important for sure, absolutely. But that retiree is probably sitting across your desk and thinking, you know what? Quite frankly, I don't really care about averages. What I care about is this year. I don't care about these theoretical returns. I care about my paycheck. And, you know, the market is going to do what the market's going to do over the next 30 years. What I'm concerned about is will my spouse be okay? And that's why the advisors that truly understand retirement income planning separate themselves from the competition. Because retirement's not an investment challenge, it's a distribution challenge, right? It's a tax challenge. It's a healthcare challenge. As I've already said, overall, quite frankly, it's an emotional challenge. And what we've also found is increasingly, actually, it's a communication challenge. And the advisor that is winning, that's the advisor who is simplifying all of those challenges. The one that has a system in place, creating repeatable processes, creating frameworks that clients can actually explain to their spouse when they get home. Think about it. I bet, and this is a conservative number. If you were to poll 10 of your clients, 7 of them would come back and not be able to explain to you what their plan is. Confidently, I could say that. Let's test that sometime. Ask your clients, "Hey, can you explain your plan to me?" And see what happens. Because when a new prospect comes in the door, if they can't explain your recommendations to their spouse, that they definitely don't understand it themselves. And guess what? When confusion is in place, action is not in place. If I'm confused, I'm not moving forward. So, how do we create retirement confidence? How do we fill that gap of retirement confidence? And it's a very interesting thing that I see happening right now in the industry is what we call the retirement confidence gap. So many retirees today have more money than previous generations, yet they feel less confident. What? Why is that? Isn't that just kind of a wild psychology when you think about it? Because here's my opinion. My opinion is that retirement has become dramatically more complicated. Let's just list out just some of the variables that retirees are facing today: Social Security timing, tax rates, RMDs, Roth conversions, Medicare premiums, inflation, sequence of returns risk, long term care expenses, market volatility, legacy planning, adult children, grandchildren, longevity, IRMA. I mean, when you put that all on a list like that, as I was preparing for this podcast and I was going through that, I thought, man, that is overwhelming. And especially, I've been doing this 25 years. This has been my expertise for 25 years. I'm still overwhelmed. And once again, when somebody feels overwhelmed, like confused, they will delay decisions. But this is where your value comes into play. This is where you become incredibly valuable. Not because you are eliminating 100% uncertainty, because no one can do that, right? That what you are doing is you are helping your prospects to understand that by working with you, your progress that you are providing them it is going to spite uncertainty. You are going to help them move forward despite uncertainty. And the, the framework that we're talking about is clearly communicating, here's our process. Here's what we know. Here's what we don't know. That's the most important piece. But more importantly, even beyond all of that, is here's how we are going to adapt together. Once again, y- prospects don't expect perfection. What they want is leadership. What they want is guidance. And that all comes from processes. The firms that are growing the fastest right now, and I say this all the time, they're not necessarily the smartest firms. They're the firms with the clearest systems. Because that firm understands systems create confidence. And with confidence, action, and with action, that's growth. That's what we're talking about today. And I talked earlier about retirement income planning being a communication problem. And I don't think it really gets discussed enough in our industry. Retirement planning is not a investment problem, so to speak. It's a communication problem. So let's think about it. The average retiree today, and I just talked about this in the last podcast, has access to more information at their fingertips, more information than any generation in history. They could get YouTube videos, podcasts, articles. They could ask AI questions at midnight from the bed. Information's everywhere. And yet confusion is at an all-time high. And why is that? It's not because the retiree has an issue finding information. They're actually trying to determine which information literally applies to them. For example, you will read one article, and that article says, you know what, you need to claim Social Security early. The next article says, no way, you need to wait. One article says, hey, you know what, the market's getting ready to soar. Another one's predicting a recession. Hey, you know what, I've got a friend that says annuities are the devil. Got another one that says, oh my God, I don't know where I would be without annuities. So by the time, understandably so, a prospect walks into your office, they're not necessarily looking for options, so to speak. What they are looking for is clarification. Please help me connect the dots. And if you are that advisor, you are the one that's separating yourself. You are the ones with the most success overall understands that the real job here isn't simply managing money. It is truly to translate complexity into confidence. So that means taking those concepts we talked about earlier, the sequence of return risk, inflation, tax diversification, RMDs, Medicare planning, legacy planning, and explaining those concepts in ways that prospects can clearly understand. Because if they are going to move forward, they're not going to do it when they're overwhelmed. They're going to do it when they feel real clarity. So, as I said earlier, I want you to challenge yourself. Ask yourself this question: when someone has left my office after they heard my plan that I provided to them for the first time, would they be able to explain it on the way home to their spouse? If the answer is no, a very, very good chance that the process is too complicated. The advisor that's going to win over the next decade is not going to be the one with the most technical knowledge. They are going to be the ones that simplify the complex without oversimplifying the truth. So you're going to have whiteboards and visual frameworks, stories, processes, checklists, educational events, client reviews. Those systems are all about helping those individuals understand what they've been provided, not just what they've been provided, but why they were provided. Because the confidence is not just about information. It's about helping them make sense of the pieces. And that's the most valuable service that any advisor can provide. So let's start talking about frameworks here because scaling, that is such a overused term today. Scale, we help scale. We do scaling. I'm looking to scale. You know what scales? Frameworks. That's what scales because frameworks they, they create consistency. Frameworks train new advisors. Frameworks make complex situations, conversations simple. And surprise, the reality is your clients aren't going to remember every chart that you've shown them. They're not going to remember the exact rate of assumptions that you're showing in their plan. What they remember are the frameworks that you've provided them that help them make sense of retirement. The, the, the best advisor is not necessarily the best planner, they're the best teacher. And I'm getting ready to walk through three frameworks that I've learned over the years that could completely transform the conversations that you're having with your pre-retirees and retirees. So, framework number one, this is the three bucket conversation. And really, we should call it bucket conversation because sometimes we add additional buckets for specific reasons. But let's, at the foundation, let's just talk about three bucket conversation. And one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen is presenting retirement assets as a collection of accounts as opposed to a real coordinated plan, right? Your client sitting there and they're saying, okay, I've got three IRAs, got a brokerage account, a Roth IRA, two old 401ks, a savings account, maybe an annuity, a company stock. And so all of this feels fragmented, right? All over the place. Your job is to take that and simplify. So I like to break retirement into three buckets. So bucket number one is today's income. That this bucket is the one that answers that one question of, hey, how are we actually paying the bills? This is the bucket that's going to help your clients really relax because once again, retirement is ultimately about replacing a paycheck. Quite that simple, really. So this is the bucket where we're going to talk about Social Security, pensions, if they have one, guaranteed income sources, any cash reserves, any other income producing assets. This is the distribution strategy. So, and here you're going to be asking questions like, hey, how much monthly income do you really need? Which of these expenses are actually fixed versus discretionary? And and ultimately, what would make you feel financially secure? Because retirees don't need every dollar working aggressively, right? They just need to know that their lights are going to stay on. The bucket two is actually tomorrow's growth. Okay. So we've got today's income addressed. Now we shift the conversation. And this bucket only exists to answer the question, how do we protect your future purchasing power? So retirement isn't hopefully only 24 months. What we're trying to plan for many of your clients is 25, 30 years. And guess what? Inflation doesn't disappear simply because they stop working. This bucket right here is designed to, first of all, combat inflation, create future flexibility, participate in market growth, fund future travel and lifestyle goals, support long term care, healthcare expenses. An important question to ask here is if one of you lives to 95, what do you think your money needs to do between now and then? So Our question is immediately changing the conversation from short-term market performance to long-term planning. Because retirement isn't also not just about generating income today, it's about ensuring income tomorrow. You're asking these questions really to support the framework. Even though you already know the answer and you may already have the solution, you're trying to help them understand the framework. The most overlooked bucket is bucket number 3, the future opportunities. I've seen many advisors stop after income and growth, but, you know, many retirees do care about what's happening next, meaning after they pass. So this is a bucket that addresses legacy planning, gifting strategies, grandchildren, charitable giving, healthcare surprises, long-term care, helping their adult children, really just unexpected, right? Just unexpected situations. So this is a wonderful, one of my favorite questions to ask. What do you really want your money to accomplish beyond your own retirement? Man, that is a deep, deep question. You'll need to ask further clarification questions after this, but you know, after they understand that, for many clients, that answer actually might be extremely simple. They want to leave a legacy. And for others, they want to travel, buy property, support causes they care about, or create opportunities for future generations. The beauty of the three bucket framework is that it changes the conversation. Uh, your clients will stop seeing a pile of accounts and they're going to start seeing a plan with real purpose. So that's framework number one. Framework number two is talking about the 5 retirement risks. So, you know, we've said this time and time again. Clients aren't buying solutions, so to speak. What they are really buying is relief. The challenge is that we might be assuming what that prospect sitting across the table is worried about. So let's not assume that, because every retiree carries a different fear. So another question that I love is, when you think about retirement, which of these concerns keep you up at night? So then we're going to walk through these 5 risks. So risk number one, once again, as I've already said, it's well known that the number one fear among retirees is running out of money. This is honestly probably the one that they will mention first, even if they don't say it directly, because they're sitting there to themselves. They're asking, what happens if I live longer than expected? Am I going to be able to maintain my lifestyle? And that conversation really isn't about portfolio performance. That's about confidence. That was the first risk. The second risk is taxes. Many retirees have spent decades deferring taxes. Now they're wondering, oh my gosh, what is going to happen? Do I have a tax bomb? Are my tax rates going to increase? What is up with these RMDs? How much do they actually cost me? I've heard about these Roth conversions. What should I do one? How can I pass my assets efficiently? So taxes, quite frankly, are or can be a bigger concern than the market itself. Risk number 3 is healthcare. Healthcare costs, they create uncertainty because they feel unpredictable. Clients are wondering, will one of us need long-term care? Will both of us? How does Medicare actually fit into this? Do they cover it? I think so. What happens if we face yet another major medical event? And this is where you, the advisor, can create tremendous value by planning for the possibilities instead of reacting to emergencies, right? I was risk number 3. Here we are. Risk number 4, market volatility. So retirees will experience market downturns differently than the accumulators. So a 40-year-old investor sitting there thinking, "Oh, the market's going to recover." They should, if they're being responsible. The 68-year-old is going to be thinking, "Oh my gosh, I have to completely change my lifestyle if there was not a proper plan in place." That emotional thought process shifts everything. Because retirement planning is not just about market returns, it is really about the sequence of returns and the sustainability of your income. Number five, that fifth risk is leaving money behind. Many folks do quietly worry about legacy. They're asking questions like, "Will my kids be okay? Will my spouse be financially secure? But what happens to my assets ultimately when I'm gone? What type of impact do I want to leave?" And the most important lesson to all of this, and the answers that your clients will give you here will completely change your recommendations. Because once you've understand their real fear, that's when you could build the framework from there and what matters to them. And then framework number 3, the retirement paycheck framework, my favorite. One of the most powerful questions that you can ask. It's an incredibly simple one again. "Hey, where's your retirement paycheck gonna come from?" "Oh, I don't I don't know." It's fascinating how many of your prospects won't be able to answer that question. They know how much they have. They know where it's invested for the most part, but they don't actually quite understand how their income strategy works, or even if they have an income plan. That's your role. Your role is to create that clarity. So you got to start out by mapping out each and every single income source. So your first step is to identify that guaranteed income, like Social Security, pensions, annuities. You're going to ask how much of your essential life is actually already covered. That's going to shape the rest of the plan. The next step will be how to identify flexible income. Where is discretionary spending going to come from? Talking about your travel and your gifts, home improvements, children, grandchildren experiences. They've got to understand the difference between a lifestyle and lifestyle necessities. Step number 3, we got to organize these accounts by tax treatment. They got to understand taxable accounts versus tax deferred versus tax free. Guess what? Conservatively, 98% of your prospects have never visualized their assets this way. But when they do, once they totally understand that, all of a sudden, Roth conversions, withdrawal strategies, tax planning all start to make sense. And that's the beauty of it. Step number 4, we've got to create guardrails. We talk through scenarios. What would you do if the market dropped 20%? Which of those assets would stay untouched? What's going to change for you and what would stay the same? Once again, clients aren't necessarily only asking for guarantees. They want is a roadmap. Give them the roadmap. And when you're providing that roadmap, you will find that something powerful happens. The conversation's going to change. You are no longer just the investment manager. You're actually a retirement strategist, a retirement partner. And in today's environment, the retirement partner is the one that's winning. So let's talk about some of the systems that I've seen behind some of the greatest advisors out there. They don't simply just have better ideas, they have better systems. So 5 of my favorite systems that you should build for your retirees. Number 1, obviously an annual retirement review. That totally makes sense. So we're gonna in that review, we're gonna be covering through their income, their taxes, healthcare, beneficiaries, their legacy goals, market concerns, family updates. This should not be a random meeting. This one should be very focused, very, very disciplined. System number 2, what does your retirement onboarding process look like? What's happening in the first 90 days? What documents are these new clients now bringing in? What expectations have you set for them? What communication cadence do you have in place? Your clients value professionalism, and professionalism ultimately comes from a strong and steady and consistent process. System number 3, educational content. This is a must have. You've got to be an educator. You got to be doing podcasts and videos and newsletters, social media, workshops, retirement classes. The educational campaigns are much more than just generating prospects. They are going to deepen your relationship with your current clients. Number four, a team communication system. What I mean by that is if your team cannot fully explain your retirement process, guess what? Your business is not going to scale. I mean, every assistant, every associate advisor, every client service team member, everyone should understand this is how we serve retirees. I'm not saying they got to know every single step along the way. They've got to have a very, very good understanding of it. System number five, a referral system. I'm going to say that again, a referral system. When I ask the question of how many referrals you get, and that answer is, oh, I don't know, about four or five. Okay, four or five last week, four or five over the last month. How many referrals do you get? And when I hear I got 78 last year, guarantee you that advisor has a system in place. That advisor that says, oh, I don't know, four or five, there was not a system in place there. Because guess what? Referrals don't happen just simply because you ask. They 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 happen because there is such great clarity there among your current prospect, or excuse me, your current clients. They are referring confidence. They are referring the full organization. They are referring professionalism. And if you are making their retirement feel manageable, they want to refer to that. So put a system in place so they can refer to you. That actually, believe it or not, some clients might not understand that they have the ability to refer to you. So let's talk about some practical steps that we can implement right away. So number one, write down your retirement planning process in 5 steps. If you can't explain it simply, your clients won't be able to understand it. Number two, review your last 5 appointments. Did you leave with products? Did you lead with outcomes? How did that meeting start? Number three, ask every prospect that you meet with, what worries you most about retirement? Then shut up. Let them talk. Listen. That answer alone will guide the entire meeting. Probe the question as they are answering. That sounds great. Tell me more about that. Oh, that's really interesting. I don't quite understand what you mean there. Give me more details. Probe them along the way, but listen. Don't provide solutions. Don't provide thoughts. Don't provide feedback. Probe. Number four, build a visual framework that your clients can take home. Not a 30-page report, a page, maybe 2 pages. Simple, memorable, clear. I can explain it to my spouse. And then finally, action number five to do this week. Evaluate whether you have systems support growth. Meaning, because the problem is talent. You don't want talent being the bottleneck. Systems become the bottleneck. The advisors who dominate, okay, they're, like I've said time and time again, they're not the ones that know more. They're the ones that communicate better, teach better, but ultimately systematize better. That's what we're talking about. If today's conversation sparked an idea, challenged the way you think about retirement income, or simply made you realize, like, you know what, man, my systems could be stronger. I want to encourage you to take this next step. Head out to our website, which is simply evolvewithgradient.com/ignite team, and request our retirement income planning framework. Okay, once again, evolvewithgradient.com/ignite team. Request our retirement income planning framework. We created this specifically for advisors who are working with pre-retirees and retirees because let's be honest, retirement conversation has changed, right? We want to make sure that you are able to easily communicate. And I get it. We all have incredible knowledge, but it's about the systems and the framework to be able to communicate that knowledge for our clients to be able to immediately understand and appreciate. That's what we're talking about. That's why we built this resource. You're going to find all kinds of great tools and ideas to help not only you, but more importantly, your clients and your prospects have more confidence and have an awesome client experience. So what we have in there are retirement income planning frameworks, client discovery questions and conversation guides, tax planning and Roth conversion concepts. This one's always my favorite. Marketing campaigns, educational content. We've got the seminar, the workshop, client event strategies. My favorite is the annual review system and the meeting frameworks. And then finally, this is kind of the boring part, but the vital part, business building and operational ideas. The important part to all of this is I want to make sure when you request this, don't just let it sit in a folder on your desktop. Implement it right away. Use it in your next client review. Use it in your next discovery meeting. Let's use it in our next workshop. Let's make sure your team understands how to use it so they can communicate more consistently. And then we could create newsletters and social media and videos and podcasts, all kinds of stuff from this because we want to make sure that your clients and prospects actually remember how you explained retirement. We want them to feel extremely organized from your process. And when they walk out of your office, you want them to feel very confident, head held high, chest out, feeling more confident than ever, more confident than when they walked in. So my challenge to you is don't let this episode just be another podcast that you listen to between appointments. Choose awe idea from today's conversation and let's implement it this week. And then also don't forget, head out to evolvewithgradient.com/ignite team, request the retirement income planning framework. Let's start building those systems. Let's get it all together because we want you to be the one that communicates the best, teach the best, create the most confidence, and we'd love to help you do exactly that. And that's really why we have this podcast. Consistency, right? Let's get it together. Let's make sure that we are all working towards the greater good of your client. And with that being said, before we wrap up, I want to say thank you for doing that. Thank you for showing up every day for your communities. Thank you for helping families navigate some of the most important decisions they'll ever make. Thank you for those countless conversations that are actually well beyond investment decisions. You are helping folks retire with dignity. That's huge. You are helping widows and widowers through the most difficult seasons of their life. You are helping families care for their aging parents, caring for my mother-in-law and father-in-law right now. It's not easy. I'll take all the support I can get, and once again, I've been doing this for 25 years. You are helping grandparents create opportunities for future generations. So when I say this work matters, I mean it deserves recognition. So thank you again. If you enjoyed today's episode, we would greatly appreciate it if you liked, followed, shared, subscribed. Make sure you're sharing it specifically with your team and your entire firm because the more we improve our systems, our processes, our communication, ultimately it's some more families that we can help. So until next time, keep building, keep learning, keep serving. We'll see you on the next episode of Unfiltered and Unstoppable. As always, thank you for what you do.
The opinions herein may be from personal experience and may not necessarily be those of the Gradient Financial Group, its employees, or affiliates. Any results, topics, or outcomes are for informational purposes only. Financial professional use only. Rob Romesburg does not render tax, legal, or accounting advice and is not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency.